Fox News Podcasts presents the Bret Baier Podcast with Fox News Chief Political Anchor Bret Baier.
We are holding the line to bring down healthcare costs, and Republicans' answer to that, canceling votes and running away from their duty.
Republicans are not going to bow to these tactics. We've made clear from the beginning, there's nothing to negotiate.
I don't think the Republicans really want to get into the middle of a health care debate because they really don't have good answers for why they made the $1 trillion cuts in Medicaid.
Well, as we told you earlier tonight, the Senate has taken another vote right now on House Republican bill that would temporarily fund the government, end this nearly week-long shutdown. Let's bring in Senate Majority Whip John Barrasso of Wyoming to tell us where things stand right now. Senator, what can you tell us about what's going down on the House floor, sir?
Well, the shutdown continues. 2/3 of Americans say open the government, do a continuing resolution, and then get back to discussing things. But what this shows is that Democrats are completely owned by the far left wing of their party. They're calling the shots. Their hatred of President Trump is astonishing, and they're wanting to hurt President Trump. Instead, they're hurting hardworking American families. They're hurting our veterans and certainly our soldiers who aren't going to get paychecks. They're hurting the program for women, infants, and children, which runs out of money this week. The demands are excessive. They're extensive. They're not going to be paid. All we're saying is, look, let's do a 7-week clean continuing resolution, keep the government open, have lots of discussions at that time, do the appropriations bills, which is what the members of the committee say that's the amount of time that they need to get all of that done. But what's happened is the Democrat leadership, and Chuck Schumer, who's afraid of his shadow right now, has turned over the reins of the party to Bernie Sanders, AOC, and Elizabeth Warren. So that's what we're dealing with, and the government remains shut.
I interviewed your Democratic colleague in the Senate, Peter Welch, yesterday. He talked about this timing problem that's inherent in the CR. I want you to take a listen to him, sir. We'll get your reaction.
Sure.
The dilemma we have is that this continuing resolution extends until November 21st. The drop-dead date for those families in Oklahoma and those families in Vermont about whether they will or won't be able to continue to have health care is November 1st. So there's a calendar-imposed crunch.
What do you say to that, sir?
Well, the date was chosen by the Republican and Democrat who lead the Appropriations Committee, and they said that's what they need to do all the appropriations process. The Democrats are really hammered by October 18th. That's when they have their No Kings March in Washington, D.C. And these Democrats in the Senate, people that would vote for a continuing resolution, they are so scared of the Democrat far left wing that are coming to town that day that I don't see this actually ending until after that march is over. Look, the Democrats, let's look at the difference between the Republicans and the Democrats right now. This blind hatred of President Trump has caused them to shut down the government. What have Republicans done? We've shut down the southern border. We've shut down the Democrats' efforts to the Democrats' effort to raise taxes by $4 trillion. People want the government open. We can discuss other things later. They want the troops to be paid. People want safe, secure, prosperous America. They want affordable prices. I was in the White House on Friday talking with President Trump, and the president clearly understands that he has an opportunity as well as an obligation to deal with this government, which spends too much. It's too large. And to see the Democrats keeping the government shut down and turning over the purse strings of our government to President Trump, it's astonishing. I mean, that's how much their blind hatred is of the president. They just hate the fact that he won, and they hate the fact that he's successful.
Sir, real quickly, I want to make sure I get your reaction to this. You serve on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. The president said a short while ago that these peace negotiations that are underway in Cairo over the future of Gaza and hostages in Hamas captivity are actually much broader. He started talking about Iran's nuclear program. He started talking about other regional challenges and seemed to be saying, you guys are missing the forest for the trees here. This is all much bigger than you realize. What do you think about that?
Well, I'm very happy what the president's done. My hat is off to him in terms of what he's done with Hamas and with Gaza. It's been 2 years tomorrow since the attack. Hamas is a terrorist organization. There is blood on their hands. And what the president is aiming for is a release of all the hostages, then humanitarian aid, and an enforceable peace between Israel and Hamas. That's what we need to have there. And yeah, I think that comes together. Then we have much broader peace in the Middle East. And the president is a peacemaker here. And I think if this all comes together, the Nobel Prize would be in order.
All right, Senator Barrasso, thank you for taking time with us tonight to lay it all out for us. Always informative to talk with you.
Thanks, Gillian.
Thanks, sir.
All right, we're going to take a quick pause here. We'll be back after this.
We are now in day 6 of the Democrat federal government shutdown. Millions of American federal workers are under enormous financial stress as a result.
The Republicans have full control, the House, the Senate, the White House. They put us in this shutdown, and they're afraid to even have members in Washington to get something done to reopen the government.
The House did its job. We passed our bill. We did the job to keep the government open, and now it's on the Senate Democrats.
Speaker Johnson can make all the excuses he can, but what Americans see are their leaders on the Republican side not doing their job, not even showing up to work.
And look at the Senate floor where a vote just failed to reopen the government. That means the shutdown continues. It's time to bring in our panel, Fox News contributor Guy Benson, Democratic campaign consultant Kevin Walling, and Meridith McGraw, White House reporter for the Wall Street Journal. Wonderful to see you all during the shutdown. You were all working harder than ever before. Meridith, what do you make of, no one was really expecting this vote to come out any differently. This is becoming more intractable by the hour, it seems, at this point.
Yeah, really no surprises here with this vote. We've been stuck in this shutdown stalemate that I really don't feel like we're going to see any signs of things changing until there are some real economic pressure points that happens. And we're going to see that probably at the middle of the month when this shutdown could start impacting people's paychecks. And we could see real world impacts on things like, the ATC controllers, air traffic controllers, things like that will start to disrupt people's daily lives. But until then, it really does seem like Republicans and Democrats are at odds here on how they're going to move forward.
Kevin, October 15th, just a few days from now, is the date upon which military service members would get their next paycheck if the government were not shut down. Could that be a pressure point that brings Democrats back to the table in a meaningful way?
It's certainly a pressure point, and of course the House is out until October 14th, just a day before that pay deadline, to your point, Gillian. Listen, I think what you're seeing from Leader Jeffries is continued overtures to the Republicans. He says, let's have a debate in prime time, Speaker Johnson and myself, to talk about these issues. You saw Caroline Leavitt in that press conference talk about some of the hardships that Americans are going through, and that's why Democrats are so focused on health care and the fact that, for example, a couple in their 60s making $85,000 a year, they're going to see their premiums increase if we don't do anything on these credits from $7,000 a year to $25,000 a year. And these notices are already going out for November towards the end of the year. So this is a crisis that's happening right now. Democrats are trying to help Donald Trump through this by, people are already talking about how expensive things are. We're trying to give Republicans an out to take on this issue and win on this issue in terms of health care and bring them to the table.
Guy, I know that you don't agree with that, but I really want to make sure that I ask you about the Virginia Attorney General's race while I have you here. This is a statement from the Democratic nominee, Jay Jones. He says, Virginians deserve honest leaders who admit when they are wrong and own up to their mistakes. This was a grave mistake, and I will work every day to prove to the people of Virginia that I will fight for them as Attorney General. This, of course, in reaction to those text messages that we saw earlier tonight.
Yeah, he went out of his way to text a Republican to talk about his death fantasies for the then Speaker of the House, a Republican at the time, and his children over political differences. And when given the opportunity to climb down or walk away from that, he doubled and tripled down and said that he believed that the Speaker and his wife were raising little fascists. I mean, it's so grotesquely, cartoonishly awful that I can't believe we've seen almost no Democrats view this as a disqualifying event for this man to become the lead law enforcement official in the state of Virginia. I see today a state legislator, a Republican, said that Jay Jones told her back during the George Floyd era that if more cops were to get killed, in these riots, perhaps the cops would stop shooting people. Now, Jones is denying that he said that, but I don't believe him because we know what now resides in his heart and what he's willing to say even to Republicans, even in writing. This is shocking, and we'll see if the voters of Virginia will tolerate it.
Any room, Meridith, for him to to come back from this and to have his campaign continue as it is going forward?
Well, I think we're going to have to see how this impacts the races in general in Virginia. We know that early voting is already underway in Virginia, and we've seen how Democrats have condemned what he said, but Republicans have really used this as a rallying cry, and the president has chimed in and trying to paint Democrats as extremism. I think this is extremist. I think this is going to be a test for Democrats in Virginia to show unity around him if they indeed want him to stay in the race. But the real question is how this might impact the governor's race as well, where Abigail Spanberger has shown that she's been in the lead so far.
Can you even imagine how angry the party is in the state of Virginia, knowing that he was aware of these texts and moved forward anyway after he had shared them with Republicans? Kevin, important negotiations going on in Cairo today over the future of Gaza, the future of Hamas rule there. Are you expecting a breakthrough?
I certainly hope so. I think, indications are obviously you have what's left of Hamas's leadership in Egypt for those meetings. Ron Dermer, who is Prime Minister Netanyahu's point person on all this, is traveling there later this week. You have a rallying of countries in the Arab-speaking world behind this plan. So I am hopeful that we will make a breakthrough. But the key thing is getting those hostages home. As we've seen, tomorrow marks 2 years where 1,200 incredible Israelis lost their lives. And we should never forget that. And the brutal, disgusting nature of Hamas. I'll also echo what Guy said earlier in terms of Jay Jones, and let me be a Democrat and say that Jay Jones should step back from this race. He should not be in elected office. It's totally unqualifying what he texted in those messages. It's disgusting. It's un-American. And at a time when we need to have cooler heads prevail in this country, he needs to step back from the spotlight.
Real quick, Guy. Is there any real chance that Hamas is going to give up the 20 remaining living hostages and the remains of the 28 others?
I don't know, and that's the only question.
Right.
You can't really look for good faith from a genocidal terrorist organization. But if this is to move forward in any meaningful way, the hostages must be returned first.
Right.
Everything else comes later.
All right, panel, thanks so much for taking time with us tonight.
Thanks, John.
Listen ad-free with a Fox News Podcast Plus subscription on Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Prime members can listen to this show ad-free on the Amazon Music app.